We had set up a program at the old Walter Reed in the MATSI, the Military Advanced Training Center, which was a building we built to help in the rehabilitation of amputees. And we had started doing classes there. Originally they were an offshoot of Charlie Thornton's ACE mentoring, but they evolved into really classes to help future entrepreneurs get an idea in their head about starting businesses. Amanda helped me with the idea, and we spread from just starting a construction company to starting any kind of business. And we would have a lunch, and we'd try to get the amputees in there to talk and listen to various people, mostly entrepreneurs, but people that worked on doing business plans and so on. And lo and behold, HT tagged along with Clayton Hitchman one day. Clayton was his platoon leader who had stepped on a landmine, an IED, and they both got badly injured. And Clayton was coming to our class, and HT, who lost an eye and had some traumatic brain injury, decided to come along to the class. And he kept coming back and coming back. This was probably about 5-6 years ago. HT came in. He tended to be a little bit quiet. He wasn't sure if this class initially was for officers only or who was allowed to come in. But HT would sit in the class and was very quiet and observant and very bright. And I think construction was probably the furthest idea in the world from him. He was indicated he was initially thinking of something about an exotic restaurant overlooking the Pacific Ocean. But that gradually changed with time. What struck me was he kept coming back to the classes, and you could see that it was really registering on the right level in his mind that, hey, you know, I could go start a business and do something on my own, and more importantly, be my own boss. And that's what HT really wanted to do. I actually got accepted into a program by Sentinels for Freedom, and they're a very, very good group, and they help vets return to areas where they grew up and get into a business opportunity. And HT took a job in the defense industry, and I believe worked for the better part of a year. But he kept thinking about starting his own business, and every once in a while I'd get a phone call, and HT would talk about something we talked about in the class, and somehow he gravitated towards the construction industry. But in typical HT fashion, he did his homework and studied up on it and really researched what was going on out there. How do you get certified as a disabled vet-owned business? How do you get licensed as a contractor? How do you do this within the rules and regulations in San Francisco and California and so on, and comply with all the various levels of bureaucracy that are out there? HT did his homework and did his research. What I did was I was kind of a sounding board for HT to bounce ideas off of. HT would come up and give me a call and say, hey Bob, we've been thinking of doing this and doing this. And because I'd spent the better part of 50 years in the construction industry, and I'd been very involved with the Urban Land Institute over the years as a trustee and as a governor, I knew a lot of people in real estate. I knew some people in real estate in the San Francisco area. And in the course of talking to HT about his ideas, I said, you ought to be talking to some people in the real estate sector, because if you're going to be a contractor and you don't want to just do government work, you want to do private sector work, you ought to be able to get their thoughts and ideas on what they're looking for. So I introduced him to a ULI member that I'd known from the International Council, Richard Leidera, who was a very interesting, successful real estate developer in the San Francisco Bay Area, but had spent a number of years in Hong Kong, working both in Hong Kong and China. So he knew the Asian real estate market, and he knew the California market, and more importantly, he was a successful real estate developer and gave HT insight and perspective to how that component of the marketplace worked. They came from different worlds, but they really got together well, and I thought the strengths of one offset the weaknesses of the other, and it worked out quite well. It was a good marriage for him, and it's a case of 1 and 1 equals 3. He's doing, my understanding is 25 or 30 million a year right now, which is pretty remarkable in 4 years or 4 years plus. And he's got a diversity of people that have come to work for him, from financial people in the finance department to people that run projects. And so I think he's got the skill base that he needs. I really, frankly, don't see a limit to HT in terms of what he's going to be able to do, because he's going to grow, but I think more importantly, he's going to grow in a planned, steady manner. The economy is relatively good right now. The market's pretty good. There's construction opportunities out there. I was particularly struck this past summer when I saw an announcement that he'd been awarded the renovation of Coit Tower. Coit Tower, for those that know San Francisco, is a historic building. They were renovating it and upgrading it, and HT beat out the competition, got the renovation contract. So now HT is at the GC, general contracting level, in a significant way, and that a lot of people are paying attention to. HT is sincere, he's loyal, he's thorough, he studies the projects, he does his homework. I've never been in a presentation that he's made for a new job or to try and get a new job, but I'm sure he leaves the room and the audience in that room have the confidence that HT knows what the hell he's talking about. And he's going to figure out some way in the world to make this thing be successful. Not only successful for Anvil Construction, but successful for the client and the owner. As HT is doing this and is building success upon success, now he's got to look at expanding to different geographic areas. Does he go to the East Bay? Does he go down to South Bay? Does he spread Northern California? Does he spread up to Sacramento? Does he venture down to the LA area? All these kinds of things, which have opportunities, but then you get other dimensions to your business. The limit is going to be how much HT wants to do, how much HT and his partners want to do. And I think they're, you know, one of the great things, he's young enough to do anything he wants. I mean, you know, he's not even 35 yet, and he's out there doing all these amazing things. And I think he's going to attract other skilled people to come join him. When we were putting together 100 entrepreneurs, we initially started out in the construction industry, and we eventually evolved into entrepreneurship. And it was with the help of Amanda Weathersby that we broadened our perspective from construction to a wide range of opportunities. But when we saw HT come into this class, and HT was typical of so many of the wounded, they'd been through a really bad experience. They'd been injured, they'd lost limbs, they'd had brain injuries, they'd been through a traumatic rehab process. And initially they're worried about, how do I get to the bathroom? Not, what am I going to be doing the rest of my life? And at some point in the rehab, they begin to look further beyond the door. What happens? I can't go back in the Army or the Marine Corps. What am I going to do that creates as much excitement and challenge for me as I had when I was in the military? Many, many, many have told me this is the best thing they've ever done in their life. So when HT came in and started sitting in our classes, he had no clue that he was going to be 5 years later running a $25 million a year construction company. He was sitting there exploring ideas. But as we look at the logo of 100 entrepreneurs, a light bulb went on in his head, and something clicked in there and said, you know, maybe I could start a business of my own. What we've been doing with the 100 entrepreneurs and what we've done with the 85 plus vets that have started businesses is really just give them an idea, something that sparks something in their mind so they can go out and create their own opportunity. I mean, all the credit is due to HT. He did the work. We were there for an hour and a half, a couple of times a month for 6 months while we fostered this opportunity, but HT is the one that took it and made something happen with it.